Yeah, can we start? Sanjeev ma'am?
Yes.
On behalf of the Sustainability Reporting Standard Board of ICI, Damini Gupta, extends a warm welcome to all of you to the second session of our webinar series organized under the theme Steering India's Sustainable Growth. Today's session is centered around a critical topic ISO 14001 Environment Management System. We are honored to have with us our esteemed speaker, Dr. Sanjeevni Gogawaleji, and our moderator, Harsh Shah. Let us now begin. I would like to invite Harsh Shah to take the session forward.
Yeah. So thank you so much, SRSB team, and I'll also thank Sanjeevani ma'am for giving us this very important time from her busy schedule. So quickly, we'll brief up about Sanjeevani madam. So Dr. Sanjeevani Gokhale ma'am is an highly accomplished sustainability and management system expert with an extensive experience as an international trainer, auditor, and consultant across quality environment, safety, and ESG domains. She is a CQI IRC approved tutor and a recognized sustainability assessor, actively contributed to standard setting initiatives, including BIS. With a PhD from the University of Pune and a strong industry background, spanning organizations like DNV and Suzlon, she has led multi country projects and trained professionals globally. She is also a mentor, researcher, jury member for national and international quality and innovation platforms. So, with this brief intro, I hereby hand over the dais to Sanjeevani ma'am for an expert understanding on the said project. All over to you, Sanjeevani ma'am.
Thank you, sir. And it is my honor and indeed a pleasure being on this platform. Thanks to SB. This is the first time. I mean, I've done my engineering, and most of our colleague and counterparts in engineering are big zero when it comes to commercial things. So I was very afraid joining a forum of CAs and all that. I was just trying to get withdraw myself, and that's why I said I will have to check my availability. But I'm sure you guys will tolerate with me. I have tried to make it as simple as possible, but at the same time, I realize this is my passion and this is my field of interest, so I should be able to navigate you through the introductory part of the standard.
Yes, ma'am,
So,
it's our
see,
honor to have you on the dais, ma'am. Thank you so much again, and I will, whatsoever I say you, it is of course, it's your greatness that you are with us. Thank you so much, ma'am.
no, honestly, I mean, I have been working on these projects. We can do many things when it comes to technicality, but when it comes to calculating the ROI, return on investment, and all, we really feel we are a big stupid in this field. The small little adjustments here and there, we get lost. So we definitely need an integrated approach. I have been struggling hard to sit with my CA and try to understand how do you work out these things, that thing, and I still feel that let me not venture into this field. Let me focus on my technicality, which I'm very comfortable with, and after the project is done, hand it over to CA to work it out. So it has to be a win-win association. No matter whatever you do, you cannot develop that expertise. So I have decided with my teams that allow me to use my brain only for technicality, and somebody else, some counterpart, should take care of the remaining part. So that's where I felt it is going to be a symbiotic association if we get into. And it's not only with me. I have been a university topper, but most of my counterparts and my colleague in the field feel little very uncomfortable. Why need little? Very uncomfortable when it comes to calculation part of it. Where you people enjoy that strength, so I'm sure you all will be able to have a very good symbiotic association with all of us. So when I started talking about 14,000 series, I realized we are on the eve of transition. The 14,000 series standard, typically 14,001, is getting revised in April 2026. So I was like, do I talk about 25 or the latest version or the previous version? I cannot talk about the latest version because it is not officially released. But for sure, I know the previous version is getting revised. So I thought I'll just talk about both, touching on these things. Hi, good afternoon, Mr. Gupta ji.
Good afternoon, madam. How are you?
I'm doing good. It was nice to see you. I was feeling a little
Nice to see
scared.
you after a long time. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
in so many CAs you feel little lost. I was just mentioning when I saw you, I feel little relaxed.
No, in fact, I was just searching the joining link. So just now I got it. So I just connected.
No worry, no worry. It was nice meeting
And
you
I wanted
virtually.
to tell the participants that you are one of the best speakers for this typical this standard ISO 14001. I am also one of your student only.
Yeah, when it comes to 14,000 series, I'm very fairly comfortable.
Yeah,
And that is what I was saying. We are on the verge of transition. The
yes.
standard itself is getting revised. But anyway, the final draft version is already available. So at the end, I have added some 2, 3 slides talking about what are the changes anticipated.
Great, madam. Please continue.
Right. Yeah,
Thank you.
thank you. So the standard typically focuses on prevention and protection of the environment, mitigating the adverse impacts. Now, the word impact is a technical jargon. We are going to go into detail what do you understand by impact, but the literal meaning is the effect because of that. So, all right from school days, we have been educated that there is an acid rain and the noise is increasing. And the April 2024, we had the Act Right to Health got revised, where like out of, along with the basic rights, even the right to health got introduced because of the pollution and especially the air pollution. So all of us, whether we like or not, are forced to the adverse impact of industrialization or the adverse environmental impact resulting from that. So we are trying to control our lifestyle management. We hosted G20, where the Prime Minister launched the Life Mission. Life is a lifestyle management. They said nothing but India can lead this environmental drive across the globe. So definitely being the host, we took the initiative for initiating our lifestyle to the rest of the world. But are we really following that lifestyle is a question mark. But honestly, when we look at this 14,000 series of standard and correlate, especially at my age, our upbringing was focused on more through less. We were very resource conscious. We definitely were taught about the conservative approach of living, and we indeed enjoyed our life to the fullest extent without any major pollution. I think we need to have we need to go and adopt the same good old lifestyle. I don't know how many of you would be comfortable. You may be thinking that I'm asking to go back and live in a cave's age. We are not against growth, but what we are talking about is a sustainable development, and that is the whole intent of this environmental standard. We are trying to fulfill the compliance objective, obviously, minimum things, whatever are the legal binding on us, we have to adhere to it. And most of the laws are output of some legal obligations derived from some mishap. Like EP, Environment Protection Act, came in force after the Bhopal incidents. Even trains passing through Bhopal that time got infected. I mean, the passengers got infected, and they had some disabilities because of the poisonous gas leakage in Union Carbide. So thereafter, almost in all countries, environment became on the forefront, and we started talking about environmental protection, emergency management, prevention. See, this pollution and suspended dust particle and global warming are the small invisible impacts. They're killing us, but slowly killing us. But Union Carbide was like an eye opener. And suddenly, every country, including India, got into EP Act, Environment Protection Act. But still, when it comes to act, it doesn't have any much impact unless people buy it, imbibe it, and comply to it. This 14,001 standard is definitely a voluntary standard. It is not mandatory. And when somebody adopts to a system mandatorily, the commitment, accountability, and results are remarkable. Because it's not mandatory, I truly feel that people are getting better results. Because anything which gets mandated, people find the shortcuts or bypasses for it. So, this voluntary standard does not exclude the legal compliances. What is mandatory have to be done. On and about what is mandatory, you have to also go and do something voluntarily. And what is that voluntary contribution? Is the environmental performance of your organization. Anything that you're going to influence to the society through your products, or otherwise from the society, the interactions to and fro have to be looked into. And there's a concept called life cycle perspective. Right from design up to end of life disposal, your product should not have any adverse impact. So, while doing all this, which is definitely a very noble goal, we also have to look at the financial and operational benefits. At times, it contributes positively to your bottom line. At times, it even challenges your bottom line. See, I'll tell you, if you save the resources, it's a positive contribution. But if you're using any abatement tools, abatement means purifying anything which prevents the pollution. So, such techniques like, say, some back filter while preventing the dust particulate matter, or effluent treatment plan to prevent the water pollution, or any other for that matter, any technology that you try to adopt to prevent the pollution can be costly. So here the government incentives come in the picture, and there are green finances which SIDBI is trying to promote for small scale companies. At the same time, Government of India has many initiatives. Some of them I'll touch on by the end of the day if time permits, end of the session if time permits. But indeed, here exactly the funds management skill will come in the picture. So that is where we are going to talk about the joint symbiotic association of the financial experts and the technical initiatives that we are planning to do. This is not only for an organization as such. We are also talking to share our knowledge that is acquired or the facts related to our business to the society in general. They call it as a reporting initiative, GRI, Global Reporting Initiative, or a simple communicating initiative that every organization owns as a moral responsibility. In India, it's not mandated for all the companies. BRSR, that is responsible business behavior, is restricted to only top 1,000 companies as on today. But indeed, they're trying to increase the span, and every company, every organization will come in the region. I remember I started my small setup of consultancy where 5 of us started from virtually an extension of a home, like say outhouse. And that's it. We just applied, we got an Udyam, we started working. We thought we don't have much environmental impacts because all of us have our own laptops, which even otherwise every family has. And that's it. It's a domestic extension of our setup. But very soon, that is year before that, when we went for expansion, starting a new place, we had to add on a location, and I revisited the Udyam website, and I suddenly realized that even people like us who are absolutely in office level activities still have to declare our environmental impacts, if any. And then indeed we also talked about having an consent category called white category consent. The operating team has to declare positively that they have no adverse impact. So this accountability at every level of enterprise is now coming in the picture, and this is a very positive change. So if you, even if you're not getting into the global communication initiatives or GRI initiative, you should know what are the impacts and how it does affect the society in general. So this was the fundamental requirement why we ever think of going for this standard. Now, what is the condition in India? Are we really leading? G20 was a different story, but then believe me, I was that time working with Bell R&D, Bharat Electronics R&D, and we have developed a vehicle because one of the summit was this G20. One of the meeting was scheduled in Kashmir, and all of you know how sensitive Kashmir area can be. So we have developed 20 vehicles, which were absolutely foolproof that even bullet or bombs will not impact it. If anything goes wrong, the VIPs will be diverted into that isolated vehicle where they will have all the net connectivity and they will be protected. So the fact still remains, whether we like or not, whether we talk about environment or not, there are some people who really don't care about environment. The recent war going on clearly has massacre. And on this background, talking about environment is like telling a small baby that you are eating too much, so we are facing the famine. We definitely have adverse impact. And when it comes to that, man is the only element in this universe who can impact adversely to the nature. Let it be a small industry or let it be a big war initiated by a big country. So, somewhere, when we are talking about the global initiatives and the rating, India is not at a very good position. Let's accept that. Although we enjoy the mission life, although we enjoy the alternate energy, although we are in an area where we have good sunlight and alternative energy initiatives are very high, our rating is not at all good. We are in the last five or from the bottom fifth one. So there is a good scope for all of us to focus and improvise. In climate change, indeed, we are doing reasonably better. Um, Biodiversity is also very good. So, when it comes to regional performance, if you're talking about Southeast Asia, also, we are not very good. But if you take an isolated matrices, like say forest area, we are in the top three. So, somehow we are able to maintain the forests. Water quality, we are at the bottom again. We have polluted our groundwater sources. So, we definitely have a good scope and we have a different level of understanding. Being a member of this Bureau of Indian Standard Sustainability Working Committee, we always aim that this standard should go from Bureau of Indian Standard to international standards and we should work globally. Set the norms because we know both the sides. At certain position we are the best, at certain position we are the worst. So we have the whole spectra and we enjoy and understand the situation much better than any other country. So even it is a blessing in disguise. We are way ahead of the targets set for alternative energy. And we definitely have a net zero goal. We are trying to be absolutely energy independent. And when I work with IITs and NITs, I can see, or hackathons for that matter, every year environmental hackathons are launched. There are very positive things coming up and the projects coming up. I'm sure we will become net zero very soon. Now, this was just a background. Now, let's understand when we talk about 14,000, what are we really talking about? The basic fundamental definition about environment is the sum total of the surrounding conditions, living as well as non living, that can affect survival, development, and existence. Or even we can interact with them and affect their existence, right? It's an interactive phenomenon. If I drain some hazardous chemical in the river, definitely the sea habitat or river habitat will get impacted. Or converse, if there is a global warming, the increased temperature can impact my air conditioning systems. So it is always interactive. The fundamental term environment is an output of a French word, environner. I'm not sure, I don't know French, so the pronunciation can be wrong. But it means it encompasses or surrounds. So the things that surround us is air, water, land, and all living species. All of us have to coexist, not at the cost of each other, but with each other. It's a very complex dynamic system. And human beings are the only species which can interfere in a massive way. I don't see any other species creating a war and the bomb blast or any other things like that. We are the only species who talk about industry. I mean, we use fire for our cooking, or even we use fire for any other reason. So, if we are the creator of all this deterioration, obviously we should take the accountability and start improvising the best we can. And that was a thought process for setting up these standards globally that led the industrialist focus on their contribution, their accountability, their answerability towards environment. There's a myth Just because we are getting into AI age and issues like computerization, we are not generating. I mean, pepper cutting is cut, so we are becoming environment friendly. But believe me, there's something called e-waste. And when we are calculating carbon gases, carbon footprints, the carbon equivalent of NH4, which is a gas used for etching a silicon chip, which is a foundation or bare minimum requirement for all electronic gadgets, is 2400 times worst. It is like 2400 times burning the carbon. So, are we really saving paper or are we really being very environment friendly? We have to think twice. Indeed, once again, I'm not saying that you go and stay in the cage or a cave or whatever where you don't have to grow or sustain. But indeed, you have to be serious about controlling the wastage or otherwise. So, naturally, when these impacts were evident, people started firstly for GHG trading. Why I'm using this term trading? Because they realize if I can't improvise, my business demand having a pollution, let me compensate for the ill effect I'm doing. So I'm willing to sponsor some of the projects which will have positive contribution to environment. So the financial term came in the picture. The carbon depository, carbon reporting, carbon tax, carbon funds. I mean, CBAM, very recent, and CBAM is not only restricted to Europe now, America, and for that matter, even India is starting with the carbon depository. So all of us realize if you're talking about a business impact, it cannot be standalone as an engineering output or a material output. It has to be linked to the money. And that is the only language or that is the only thing the business people understand. And that is where you all expert in the calculations and the business figures will play a major role. Whether we like or not, we are living in one ecosystem. There's no visa required for a air to go from Pakistan to India and vice versa. Same thing applies to any other country. I was working with IITM, Indian Institute of Tropical Meteorology, and in that area, it covers all the tropical things. Every second day, there is some global expert coming and studying. We have got the first supercomputer Param in that area, and we have got reasonably good infrastructure. And believe me, although it's a first supercomputer in India, we have no air conditioning required. The architecture, those of you who are near to Pune should make it a point to visit this campus. A free entry is allowed being a government industry on their foundation day, in November some 25th, 26th. I don't remember the day exactly. But the structure is such that the natural air is circulated so that the server doesn't need any cooling. And a huge, massive data is there which controls the whole rain projection and air pass, what they call it. There are many projects which talks about the meteorological application of that technology being used. Why I'm telling all this is if we Indian brains want to develop something, we can do magics. So all these experts globally come and visit, interact, share, and come out with some concrete action plans. So there is definitely a positive side to the whole thing that the whole society is becoming aware. Technocrats at the globe are getting connected, and they are definitely saying we need to prevent the further deterioration. Of course, there are arguments against and for it. There were many countries who didn't sign off the Paris Agreement because they felt their opportunity of the growth and the industrialization will get tampered because of this. I don't want to get into all these geopolitical scenario, but I mean to say, yes, countries across the globe has realized, and that's why this standard is being adopted voluntarily in big way. In this whole process, for any project to get successfully executed, we need funds management. There can be a brilliant engineering project, but is of no use unless it is implemented. It remains as a dream. And this funds management is a prime mover for sustenance. I remember we started that same IITM has a project for air pollution index communication. They started with Pune, and that was a pilot project extended to Mumbai, New Delhi. But now the project is stopped. You go anywhere, these displays are either covered or removed. And I was wondering why they did it. There were multiple people involved in this. The mechatronics by was some other company. It was floated through tender. A software, then the display unit, that is the hardware structure what they talk about. And there were a lot of issues while implementing, and there was a lot of criticism. However, the main reason why it got fizzled out was the sponsoring funds. The project was sponsored because of some funds coming from the World Bank on the environmental monitoring. And after the funds stopped, the whole project stopped. So that's a role of a project even at the government level. At individual level, I don't have to say anything because you are better expert in this. I still remember we have a company called Suzlon, and I happened to interact with Mr. Tunti, and he was telling Suz यानी समझ, लॉन यानी पैसा, लोन से डिराइव किया है हमने वो. हमें पैसों की समझ थी. We knew how to manage the money, and that's why the venture we started, we named it as Suzlon. And I strongly believe, and I've seen the ups and downs in Suzlon, how they have grown up. Tunti family was in the textile business. They got into windmill simply because there was a heavy incentive to get an windmill installed. They got an windmill physically, but it could not get installed because of the German expert not visiting in time. And you all know that before you install and start working before March end, you cannot claim the benefit. So this guy's one of the brother was mechanical engineer, and some of his batchmates they came together and started experimenting on it. It worked. So the prime driver in this case was money. And when it worked, they realized it's not very difficult. We don't have to wait for these global counterparts. We can do a difference. And today, in this alternate energy of India, Suzlon has a great contribution. So it's not only Suzlon, there are many names. In fact, we are leading the world when it comes to alternate energy. But then I repeat again, this is thanks to the funds management. Otherwise, not a single project would have been feasible. Now, when we are talking about a system which is to be universally accepted and adopted, it has a dynamics. The 2015 version, as I was trying to talk about, was focused and aligned to PDCA, that is Plan, Do, Check and Act, where the Act part definitely included the improvisation project, got amended in 2024. We all knew that it was due for revision in 2026. Still, this 2024 version got amended because of the climate change. The impact of the climate change was unavoidable. And the ISO committee did not stay back for next 2 years. They have launched that amendment. As per the IPCC, that is International Panel on Climate Change, there is a temperature rise of 0.85. And if you just see the trend, it is increasing and it is expected to reach to 1.5 degrees. This figure 1.5 or 0.8 feels pretty low, but the impact thereof is the sea level is increasing. The glaciers are melting, which also mean the human habitat or the land where we can establish is going to get deteriorated. So definitely we have to think about all these scenarios which we are innocently or intentionally for the funds creating to the rest of the world or the rest of the society. Environmental pollution has got a major evident impact. Average social indices as far as air pollution is concerned is pretty low. The crazy construction and the cement concrete technology. Previously, there used to be the laborer who used to put the plaster by hand. Now they have got a spraying machines, which works very faster. It is highly productive. It is highly automated, but it allows certain particles to float in the air. And people who are asthmatic can have really trouble when that spraying guns are used. So technology can be a boon or it can be also a curse. Knowing that, people like us who are dealing in technology need to look at this area called air, water, land, noise, waste management, and their impact on the plant and animal. So environment talks about these 5 fundamental requirements. And indeed, waste generation is an output of the whole process. So if we can protect the environment using a proper system, we are going to take care of all this which we have to take care of. So look an organization as a black box. What it all needs is a resource conservation issue. So look at, can we conserve these resources? And what it produces is definitely some fruitful thing for the society, but at the same time, something which is unwanted. They call it end of tell or end of pipe pollution. Things which are getting drained into the river or the things which are getting emitted in the air or the solid waste generated. We never wanted to do it, but it comes that way. So this part, which is an hazardous and harmful output, which is a byproduct of an industrial product, we are seriously trying to control. By we, I mean every one of us, all the stakeholders in this, starting with the government, that is regulators. As I said, the laws are becoming stringent day by day. Employees, they have to be very conscious. And customers, environment, society, contractors, investors, everybody is getting conscious. Why? The obvious impacts are loss of biodiversity, or pollution, quality of life. This is a long list. I don't want to go into details. The standard says if you really want to work for environment, talk about the life cycle perspective, right from conception, design phase up to the end of life disposal, acquisition of raw material, operation, maintenance, storage, waste management. It's a huge set of regime that the standard is demanding and highlighting for you all to study and work on. Typically, it starts with the relation between the aspect and activities. Whatever you do, whether you are at home or in factory, you're going to have a fire or the fuel consumption because fire cannot be without fuel. Even if you're talking an alternate energy, I told you, the solar panels have got certain portion silicon things etched out. And that silicon etching calls NH4. So there's nothing called clean energy. Clean doesn't mean not polluting in terms of air pollution. It can be the life cycle perspective. So we are talking about activities like fuel. Then these gases being interacting with the inert gases in the environment, that is the interaction thereof. Man-made activities like traffic, traveling, constructions, or the natural emissions. Previously also there were carbon cycle, there were emissions, there were fires, but it used to get countered by absorption in the land, water, air, and it was very well balanced. Now we have disturbed these cycles. And we are getting issues like pollutants, VOCs, volatile organic compounds, particulate matters, ozone layer depletion. So there is a whole regime of deteriorants which can be called as an aspect. Things can go wrong because of that. They are cause of some deterioration. But we are not going to stop there. We're going to study what it will impact or what it will result into. And our role as an environment management system is to put a barrier. Don't allow an aspect to get converted into impact by having a proper isolation. In fact, they talk about a 4T control. Use a technology which will not have that impact, or an engineering solution or isolation, or administrative control, or the last resort is having a standby arrangement. I'll give you a simple example: noise. All of us are familiar when the construction is going on, there is a heavy noise because of the mixers and the grinders and the generators. So, the solution could be ideally having a technology which will not use this. a silent, smooth technology can be developed. Second choice is no such technology as on today, most of us know, having an engineering control. So the engineering control is your generator having an acoustic enclosures or some proper fine tuning of the devices and equipments which will produce lesser noise. But honestly, this all calls for a cost. So people tend to compromise on it. The third thing is having an administrative control. That is the entry restrictions or the physical nets being raised. But believe me, it doesn't work. And lastly, it is the stopgap arrangement. So people who are working nearby should always use some masks or earmuffs, that sort of things. That's a stopgap arrangement. But we have to really do some system to isolate the adverse impact from the potential cause of that impact. If you can use a proper control and do that, we have achieved an environment management system. That is an EMS or 14001 in nutshell. All right, so look at all these factors that can cause an adverse impact. Adverse impact to human beings, adverse impact to animal flora, fauna, noise generation, visual impact, that fog, anything which can cause air, water, land pollution, or the solid waste generation, resource depletion has to be looked into seriously. From where we get it? Generally, people think we don't know what is the cause of this. So these are the key inputs to you. The laws are always derived from some failure. As I said, after Bhopal, we had EP. Environment Protection Act was enacted after Bhopal incidents. There can be sectorial application guides. IPCC has most of the data readily available. The industry association has some session always, like what you are doing now. Impact assessment reports are very specialized inputs that you may get. Toxic release inventories, which is globally being monitored. Material safety data sheets have to have the declaration of environmental impact, or SDS, no, what do you call it? Stakeholders evaluation surveys like Greenpeace and all. Scientific journal, insurance company, the audits and assessment, site assessments and due diligence. The list can go on and go on. But I don't think we are losing because we don't have a data. We are losing because we don't have a system. So this lacuna is overcome by the 14001 series of standard, where it starts about scope. Why do we need to have this? What is the intent of the standard? Then we have normative references. Like if you have to understand the standard and interpret it, what are the other relevant standards that you shall be looking at? We also have terms and definitions clearly defining, because for every technical standard, the correct interpretation matters a lot. So the standard itself has built-in terms and definitions. At the end, in the same standard, there is an annex which gives an interpretation guidelines, which is also quite exhaustive and continued in the new version also. So these three things are preamble or points that you should study very well before you go into the clause or the requirements which get auditable. The first and the fundamental requirement is understanding the context of the organization. By that we mean, those of you who are familiar with the management jargon will know that Porter five-folds analysis or the Pestrel analysis or SWOT analysis, you name it. There are always internal, external issues that impact your performance. Identify those issues. Climate change can be one of the issues, right? There can be political influence, there can be social influence. As I said, we in India believe in the reuse. We are not use anthroculture or community, isn't it? But then, yes, it is a very huge country and we have a diverse approaches and attitudes. So things are changing. So whatever is a social reference in which you are working, then also referring to political, economical, social, technological, legal, and the business environmental aspects, including climate change. I'll tell you one classical example in India. Again, I'm giving an example. If you control the GPs, that is Gujarat Pollution Control Board notification, and MPCP, Maharashtra Pollution Control Board notification, there is a good difference. All the rules at center, that is CPCP, is same. State-wise, we have a different interpretation and application. And first time when I came back to India and started doing environment audit, it was like a surprise to me. A pump which is used for motor, fetching the water from ground, is considered to be eco-friendly item, electrical item, and no need for any permit or any consent to operate. If you go to pump manufacturer, which I was incidentally doing, I don't want to name the company, they have a pen shop. They have a machine shop. There's so many elements that can have an adverse impact on environment, air, water, land, flora, fauna, everything. And when I saw this, I said, how can I certify you? You're not meeting the legal requirements. To my surprise, they say we are in the electrical items and that too for the water support, so we don't need a consent. And this was a big unlearning for me. I went to GPCP website and I could see, yes, they don't need it. Another interesting thing, as I said, I'm referring to Suzlon again because I was involved in the system integration. As per guidelines, there's no need to have any, it's an alternate energy producing manufacturing thing. There's no need to have any consent. And it was another shock for me because windmills are windmills cannot work without the wind fans, there's profiles which generate the kinetic energy getting converted into electricity and then getting into requisite conversion of air to electricity. So these are all molded fans, but molding cannot be precise. It has to be machined further. And the profile is so critical, it is always hand ground. That's a fibrous material. When ground with hand, it generates small polluting particles. Air pollution is extremely high. It is a human safety as well as environmental impact. It's so massive. It's so massive that World Bank has banned it. And Denmark, which is the original, there used to be windmills as well as wind farms. They have stopped producing it there. It's banned in Europe. But we in India have started the setup in the most virgin area like Daman or Pondi. I don't know how many of you had been to Pondi. Pondicherry is such a beautiful place in India. If you go to Pondi Bridge, I have been in Bombay multiple times and the Bombay beach is okay. We go there, we enjoy there, but it's not as clean as Pondi or the beaches at South. Why I'm saying these are all virgin areas in India, and if they start having such windmill manufacturing setups, we are challenging the environmental status of these countries. But yeah, that was a law and that was an interpretation that of. So we are definitely going to look at these references and understand how it is to be interpreted. Why I'm telling you these references? Because these are the interpretation by the politicians or the local authorities. They can be wrong. But we who are committed and environmental warriors should always go back and understand what is the intent of that law. And don't stop at the law. Law is a bare minimum entry point. It is like a kindergarten. When we are talking about our commitment and accountability, we should go beyond law. Understand the true and correct impact and adhere to minimize that. No matter whether it helps you or otherwise, it has to be controlled because without that, you won't be able to achieve it. Whether Gujarat Pollution Control Board calls it or Maharashtra Pollution Control does not call it or vice versa, should not be a point of argument when you're going for environment management system. Indeed, whatever is a legal compliance, that is a minimum entry point, you have to adhere. But on and above, because of that activity, if you see any adverse impact, you have to address it and act on it. As simple as that. So when you're defining the context of organization, do look at the political, economical, social, technological aspects, which may vary area to area, but define them and go beyond that. How do you ensure that going beyond that is, of course, through the leadership and employee participation? Have a proper planning executed. Once you identify these are the adverse impact, always focus on the major impacts first. Minor impact, you can go later. Whatever limited funds and the expertise you have, focus on the major issues. And likewise, then go to the minor things. You need to have a proper support system, 4M, man, material, method, machine, for any activity to be executed. So out of this, whatever you identified as your priority activity, get your people who are competent, trained, and who can address it. Go on dynamically evaluating them that they are meeting the requirement. If not, improvise it. You take a proper action. Identify the awareness across the stakeholders, including the employees, contractors, immediate supply chain partners. Have a proper communication established. We are going to go into these clauses quite in detail subsequently. But that all put together will become a man. Then we have a method or documentation which comes along with every system, a guideline how to implement the system, and an evidence how the system is implemented. So have a proper documentation. That is a method. The infrastructure and the machinery or the abatement equipment and how you're going to maintain it becomes vital. And ultimately, what we are aiming at is the material, the eco-friendly material or the green material or the star label material should be the first preferences. So think of all four aims in your support. And then you start working on the operation, whatever may be your operation. It can be as simple as trading or it can be as complex as installation of a construction company or steel manufacturing, whatever you call it. There are 6 sectors which are considered to be highly polluting sectors. Steel and construction are the two of it. That's why I was putting that. But however, if you really look at the life cycle perspective, IT can be one of the worst. It looks very clean. There is no cloud or any soot coming out of that IT thing, but the power they consume. In fact, that's another interesting thing that reminds me. When they did a carbon footprint calculation, the worst carbon footprint was with BBC, British broadcast. You know why? Because all these journalists fly across the globe. They are hungry for the news. They carry their laptops. They use all electronic devices and the cloud communications. So all these have a definitely very heavy impact. So it's not because you don't see any fire or fumes or visible impact, there is no impact. Impact can be at every level and across the life cycle. So when you are talking about environment management and operational control, we are talking about the life cycle perspective, right from conceptualization, that is the design, up to end of life disposal. In operation, there is one more small element coming in the picture, that is the emergency preparedness. While addressing your operations, there can be some scenario like union carbide, which may cause an environmental emergency. How are you going to address that? You need to be ready, prepared, drilled, so that it won't come as a surprise to you. Then we have performance evaluation, and ultimately we are trying to be better and better based on whatever we are doing. So we need to know the trend analysis and see what we aimed at have we achieved. If you have achieved, time to celebrate. If not, go back and improvise. So if you just see this logical sequence, it is nothing but PDCA, plan, do, check and act. Clause number 4, 5, 6 as planning, 7, 8 as doing, 9 as a checking, and 10 as an improvement. Those of you who are familiar with this PDCA jargon will always know this was a short cycle popularized by Deming and also known as a Deming cycle. He used this cycle extensively to ensure Japan could revive from the Second World War. And believe me, those days Japanese quality was considered to be not so good. And today, if anybody wants to code for quality, Japan is considered. And that is thanks to Deming, use of popularization of this PDCA. There are three quality gurus: Deming, Juran, and Phil Cosby. All three are American. All three are considered to be gurus in Japan. Because I don't want to comment on that. But indeed, they have contributed a lot to the whole concept of excellence. And as a tribute or as a proven fact that this PDCA helps in a big way, all 32 management system, let it be quality, environment, safety, or whatever, are entirely based on this PDCA cycle, right? Same is the case with 14001. Now, before we really get into clause by clause analysis, I like to have a small 5 minutes bio break. And I just want to ask the organizer, are these chat windows available, accessible? Because before I rattle out the clauses, I want to be sure that participants are with us and we are definitely getting questions, if any, from them. Hello.
Madam, you continue if any, madam, you continue if any question will be there. They
Okay,
will now put it onto chat box.
fair enough.
Yes,
Don't
ma'am.
worry
So what
about
we
that.
can do
People
is
are
over here,
already there.
we can take questions towards the end so that
Okay, fair enough.
everyone gets a complete
But so far,
understanding.
it was all conceptual. Now I'm getting
Yeah.
into the actual execution part. So
So yeah, so there are certain questions if you want, I can take up right now.
yeah, right. I'll be
Uh,
happy addressing that.
Yeah,
Maybe.
so I'll take few questions which I
Yeah.
have currently received. So, ma'am, the first question was, as you discussed about the specialization of chartered accountants, are chartered accountants authorized to do the ISO audits?
Anybody who appears for a 5 days training and pass that training can do an audit. And if you ask me, I'll say there are quite a few CAs I know of who can do this audit. Only
Okay.
thing, you're expert in audit, you need to know a bit on environment as well.
Oh, okay, okay, got it. Second question is, someone in the chat box wrote that we are ISO 14001 lead auditors with 20 years of consulting experience.
Okay.
They want to know how can they get ISO 14001 consultancy businesses.
Oh, that is challenging. How to generate a business or get a business is really a challenge. And if you ask me this question,
Yeah.
I don't know how to answer it because there are multiple people who do marketing for you, including digital marketing to door marketing. But yes,
Okay.
there is definitely change of shift, and organizations are voluntarily going for 14001. So promote your existence through digital things or otherwise. Let people know you're in the field, you'll definitely get the business. Or if not, you talk to me directly. My contact are given at the end. I always get one or two inquiries which I turn them off saying that sorry, I'm too tied up. So
Yeah.
environment is a growing field, and if you are already qualified, you are in the right field. All the very
Yeah.
best.
Yeah, I guess that answers. Another question was, why does ISO 14001 2015 require an organization to determine its internal and external issues before setting environmental objectives?
Yeah, that is a context. It is like saying if I'm preparing a car, I'm a car manufacturer, say I'm telco, my focus is entirely different as compared to a person who is a sheet metal manufacturer who gives me a car body. Do you
Okay.
understand? Both of
Hmm.
them probably are in the same business in the car,
Hmm.
but the objective for a sheet metal manufacturer and an objective for the telco as a car manufacturer is entirely different. Telco doesn't stop at sheet metal. It has to
Ah.
look at the engine and the pollution that is coming out of that engine, right?
Hmm.
So those regulatory norms and those designs are the key value add by telco, right?
Correct.
So whereas that sheet metal manufacturer will go for a different machinery which will give a precise cut and the timely productive output and the money generated out of it.
Correct.
So
Correct.
obviously, although they are in the same field, there are different environmental impacts and there are different legal obligations. There are different profit margins, if you allow me to say. And indeed, the in terms of environmental goals, they're going to be different because what we have and what the stakeholders want, if there is a gap, that becomes our objective or a goal to fulfill that gap. So
Hmm.
as telco, what they want or
Hmm.
what they have and what the stakeholders want, if there is a gap, they have to take that as a first objective and not what they wish to go as a business objective. I'll give you a classical example. One of my colleagues is working with telco. In fact, I enjoy my graduation from College of Engineering, and we all oldies sit together and chat around to understand what is happening in the industry. So one
Okay.
of my batchmate who has done his mechanical engineering with telco was telling me this European norm came at such a short notice. They said we'll be imposing it, but they came at such a short notice. The cutoff period was so short that our engine design has to be scrapped. See, it's not a
Correct.
funds. A design getting scrapped is not alone a fund. A design
Correct.
on paper you can redo for having a pollution control or environmental objective, but it needs a lot of heavy casting, tooling, and alignment for a manufacturing.
Correct.
So all that has a different environmental impact.
Hmm.
A basic design getting scrapped has a different environment solid waste generated impact. I
Hmm.
don't know, all of us enjoy cars, but one small notification that after 10 years the car may not be used or should be
Hmm.
scrapped has a big impact on environment, right?
Correct.
So
Correct.
that is the reason we should understand that what are the stakeholders' expectations, including the legal, which we cannot compromise. Rest
Correct.
everything probably we can adjust and then decide our goals. If we simply decide our goals and tomorrow there is a rule change, we are lost. So
Correct.
it's always better to know what we are expected to do and then do it. Otherwise, we end up into mess.
Correct. Yeah, that was really helpful, ma'am.
Yeah.
We'll take one more question and then we'll
Yes,
jump
indeed.
to the correct part. There is one someone has raised that can you throw some light on the relationship between environmental aspects and an environmental impact, and why
Yes.
is the distinction critical for successful audit?
Okay. Aspect is a cause and impact is a effect. I'll tell
Sorry,
you,
can
I
you
wash my car is an
okay,
activity. I
okay,
wash my car with a soap water. So
okay,
that soap water has a potential to cause pollution if I just drain it into the ground.
okay.
But if I treat it,
Hmm.
it's not a real life. I don't treat it. I really drain it in the real life. But if I were producing a car wash center, then
Yeah,
that water can be recycled, reused with a proper treatment of the dosing.
correct.
And that activity will avoid the impact which otherwise it would have had happened. The
Yeah,
resource conservation or the wastage of water and land pollution would be an impact otherwise if I don't control it.
yeah,
So,
correct,
in terms of an environment management system, what is a cause or what is a potential it can cause damage, and what damage has happened is isolated by a system. So, your
correct,
system effectiveness is entirely how far you're shielding the cause and effect. So, if you are able to shield the cause and effect or isolate them, your system is effective. If you're allowing the effect to go their way and just having a pepper exercise, maybe
correct,
you're getting certified but not getting the results, right? So
correct,
that is a
correct.
criticality in auditing point of view to understand the relation between aspect and impact. And that is a challenge in engineering point of view, how good you isolate the aspect and impact. Right? Have I answered that?
Yes, yes, 100%, ma'am. Yes, the doubts seem clear. So there are certain questions we take it up later.
Sure.
Probably currently we'll just continue the content. Yes.
I'm happy. I mean, I was just wondering whether it'll be a monologue and people won't understand what I'm going to rattle out, but
No,
I'm
no, ma'am.
happy to see
Actually, I
there are
guess,
questions.
yeah, I guess audience is too involved in the seminar. I'm actually receiving multiple questions throughout the session. So actually, I had to tell them certain questions. I reverted them that this has been already been discussed. So just to cut short the questions to the cream part.
No,
Great. Thank you.
Actually, yeah,
other thing, madam, in these webinars, normally,
Mhm.
interactive sessions are not there, what you used to have. It is
Right. I
basically,
agree.
that people are allowed to give the question and then you can answer. So the interest what you get now while interacting somebody will not be that you will not get here.
No, no, my only apprehension, honestly, I always feel I'm a stranger in the field of CS. I may not understand what they're talking, or they may
Yeah.
not understand what I'm talking. That was the
No, no,
apprehension.
you don't worry about that part of it.
I never
Ma'am, you can
wanted to
actually
let you
explain
down
this.
for suggesting my
They
name,
are
honestly.
they are typical auditors only.
Yes, so actually, when you are taking this example, it is actually touching the logic on both the ends. So I guess that's why people are, the whole audience would be enjoying this session. So,
Okay, so I'm relieved now I can continue. Otherwise,
Yeah,
like,
yeah. Please
100%,
continue.
100%.
it
No,
shouldn't happen that I rattle out for 2 hours and you people are lost. By the way, am I supposed to continue for 2 hours or 1.5 hours? So,
No, no, ma'am, you can. I guess people would be also fine that if you take it for 2.5 hours, ma'am. The
okay,
way people are
okay.
reacting, yeah.
All right. Fine.
Yes.
Thank you.
Yeah, ma'am.
Okay, we continue now. Coming to
Yeah.
the requirement or the auditing requirement of 14001, which is an environment management system. As we rightly said, we need to understand the context. Each organization will have a different background and different impact. So, what we expect from telco, we may not expect from the sheet metal component producer. Although the end goal is to prepare a car, a small change in the engine design, a small change into, uh, I mean, now we are going into EV vehicles. So, a small change in the pollution efficiency control or engine efficiency control will be a big impact on the environment. So we need to first understand as an auditor or even as a system designer or implementer what is exactly that aspect which can has an adverse impact and how best we can minimize that impact. And what are those factors or the issues which are the facts actually around you that may cause an impact. It can be the lifestyle of individuals, people going for a luxury car which are 6 seaters or lavish cars with 4 seaters but a long length with a finish and a plating glossy paints. Or likewise, you have to identify, you do a market research and identify what are the issues and then accordingly decide what is the system you're going to use for. So these issues plays a major role in understanding and defining your system ambience or system framework. Once you know these are the these are the issues existing, you have to go back and understand the needs and expectation of internal and external people. See, when you talk about issues, they are never only external, they can be internal issues also. And they say it is C4KV: capacity, capability, competency, knowledge, value, and culture. When I took an example of Tata, uh, I'm sure you all will appreciate there is a big difference in Tata culture and Maruti culture. My colleagues in Maruti used to have some exercises to start the day because that was the Suzuki culture. So Japanese culture is slightly different as compared to Indian culture. But then yes, it does impact your activities and your operations. So you have to really look at the capacity, capability, competency, the knowledge, value set, and the culture when you're defining the backdrop or the framework of your system. Then you understand what are the needs and expectations, what is expected out of the whole system. Is there any change like CBAM coming? I still remember we attended one conference in Maratha Chamber. We are talking about the changes that CBAM will bring in. And one of my colleague who was an entrepreneur said they are treating us like bloody Slavs. We'll produce the money and they will enjoy the funds. By having a carbon tax, ultimately they were always money minded and they were always trying to squeeze money in whatever we do. So we are going to produce the good, we are going to sell it to them, and they're going to take the money from that, than paying the money to us. Right? So this can be one of the approach, and that was really an eye opener for me. So, एक minute, I'm really sorry. Make a seminar, and I'll call you back. Uh, so when it comes to When it comes to any of the internal, external needs and expectations, probably the answers are going to be entirely changed. One simple change of law can change your whole system design. As I was giving an explanation in the Gujarat Pollution Control Board and Maharashtra Pollution Control Board in the same country, we have two different law, two different approaches. So if you are in particular state, the state rules really play a major role. So you have to understand what are the external factors as well as what are the internal factors. And when it comes to internal factors, the people who are working, when I use the term worker, it is every individual who is working in that field. It can be the top boss, the CFO, CEO, or it can be even the garbage handler, or it can be a contractor employees. Anybody who is in the same campus need to have proper focus views expressed before we really understand what went wrong. I'll tell you one classical case that the PCMC garbage handlers, Pune Municipal Corporation garbage handler trucks, if they are overloaded, there used to be contamination spread all across the path. If they are underfilled, there has to be more travel, which means more fuel consumption. So either way, it was not good. So the municipal commissioner has marked these garbage handling trucks that this is a level that you are going to load the trucks with. So it is very essential. The person who is handling a garbage also can contribute or can have some needs and expectations which we need to fulfill. So ultimately, you understand what are the needs and expectation of the workers. At the same time, other interested parties, your investors, their money is at stake, so they wouldn't like your factory to be closed just like that. And regulators, customers, suppliers. Some projects of telco, when they were shifted, I mean, very honestly, it was the Mercedes telco project which shifted from Pune to South, or some of them when shifted from Pune to Gujarat. So many suppliers have to close their shops because they were expecting a steady inflow and they have invested their machinery for that projected income. But now suddenly, telco changed their decision and strategy. Was not very conducive for these people. I mean, no banker will try to give you concession in your interest because you're not earning. That was a wrong decision. So it's a cascading effect of needs and expectation of your stakeholders as well as interested party, which does impact your business and does impact the acts you do eventually in terms of the environment. So we have to identify these factors and then decide what is the scope you're going to look at, which are the factors that you're going to control without violating or compromising the factors which may lead to the stakeholders' interest, typically the legal interest. For example, if I'm a gas manufacturer, cylinder gas, LPG gas, I may depend on the distributors because I'm not going to go and ship it door to door. But what control I'm going to have on distributor is definitely my scope because as per the Indian law, no household person will go and collect the cylinder from the manufacturer because it has a high risk. So the safe disposal, if required, even the installation has to be done through a proper authorized distributor. So if I'm defining my scope, that distributor control will become a part of my scope because of the law as well as the individual impact that it may pose on environment in case of transport losses. I don't know whether you have noticed, but very recently there was a cylinder explosion. I mean, a truck carrying cylinder met with an accident and there were cascading explosions. Because as it is, it was explosive and then any accident it was near a garage and all the cars which were parked near a garage got burnt off. So poor garage fellow, he couldn't even imagine such things may happen. I'll tell you another incident which has happened in Pune. Those of you who know Pune locations and geography will understand and relate it. We have a slum area called Dandekar Pool, which is on Sinhagad Road. Very nearby, there is a place where cremation takes place. So dead bodies are burned there. And that's why no housing development could take place and this slum area is grown up. one particular manufacturer who is a scrap vendor, because in that area we have mostly scrap vendors having their offices and setup, got into a business for disposing of some deodorants. And those of you who are using deos will always know any spray, deo or otherwise, always has some leftover. The pressure is not good enough to let go that liquid or that gas out because of the cap fitting. So it is never totally empty. A deo bottle will always have some residue in it. And this guy was given a contract of cutting off those deo cans and converting into a plate which can get recycled. So he hired some 5, 10, nobody knows whether it was 10 or 20, but some people who were readily available on daily wages, gave them the cutter, they were sitting and cutting the things in one closed room. And suddenly the explosion took place. All the people died off, and there was no track who were there inside, and there was no written record. This scrap vendor also didn't even have any written record or anything whatsoever, because scrap business is not all that registered business. Somebody gave him, that person must have agreed some 100 rupees per plate. So he got maybe the people who were paid 10 rupees per plate, and he was making money out of it, or he thought of making money out of it. But the fact remain, I mean, let us understand what was the physics behind it, or what was the reason behind it. All these DOs had some residual volatile organic compound, VOC, what they call it. It started getting out of the only outlet, which is a window. And somewhere nearby, nobody knows the exact reason, either cooking was going on or the cremation spark came. And there's always a connectivity directly to these people which was full of volatile organic compounds. So it was like a gas chamber that time. It just caught fire and everybody died off with the explosion. Now imagine this man, poor fellow, he didn't know what is the law, he didn't know anything. He had no intentions to kill anybody. But this, he was accused under the murder of so many people. And no lawyer took his case for the obvious reason it was open and shut case. Poor fellow, forget about some 100, 200 rupees per can he would have earned. That was the end of his life. But in case you are a registered vendor, and in case you have proper agreement, in case you have a proper reliability and sharing of responsibility defined, then things would have been entirely different. Then he gets a benefit of business advantage. He would have not been sentenced. It would have been the business risk accepted. You know what I'm trying to say is, you are ignorant, you are not aware, or you are going for a shortcut or a quick buck. Is not understood by the law. So all of us, at whatever level we are doing a business, we need to first define what is the scope of our business and how it can impact the environment, or how the environment can impact our business, and how best we can control it. Right. So this is something that we need to understand when you're defining the scope. The legal requirement, the business requirement, and the stakeholders requirement put together have to be included in the scope. And indeed, once these parameters are defined or the boundaries are defined, you need to establish the systems which will definitely have interacting elements, and how best you will control the adverse impact and how best you will contribute to the positive impact. Now, each company will have their own internal, external issues, their own competencies, and they will follow their own methodologies. So, this is something that we all need to understand as a background or a preamble for setting up a system. When we are setting up a system, the management commitment plays a big role. So, the leadership, which takes an accountability of whatever happens. In this classical case, the poor fellow who was a scrap vendor who didn't know ABC of anything, VOC and all, if he would have been committed, things would have been entirely different. So don't get into a business without a commitment, without a knowledge, without having a proper answerability and accountability of the consequences. So the leadership and commitment clearly talks about having an establish environment management system where you're answerable and accountable. We are not against having funds flow or generating money. Money is not a bad word. In fact, it's a bare essential thing for everyone to survive. But then at what cost? Definitely not the cost of your life. Right? So simple things like that you have to look at and understand the importance of environment management system. Wherever you are today, you have to improvise continually to reach to a level which can be a world class. But believe me, it's like Alice in the Wonderland. I'm sure you all remember she was asked to run, but she says, I don't want to go anywhere. And what answer she gets is the rule of land. Even if you want to be where you are, you have to run. Otherwise, you'll be out of the place. You'll get lost. Unfortunately, that's a business scenario today. All of us, just to maintain our position, we have to run, be on our toes. So, when doing that, whatever strategic alignment you're doing, please see to it you are not violating any of the environmental, legal, or otherwise stakeholders' requirement. If you do that, the consequences can be severe. I remember I started my career as a design engineer in Thermax. And the very year when I was a trainee, I didn't understand even ABC of it. There was a boiler explosion in Vikram Cement. And all designers, we had a meeting and all. I was too young to understand what is going on. And they said this is something serious because Mr. Aga is summoned, who was the MD those days. I said, why he should be summoned? Because he was not a designer. He was not even a boiler operator. Indeed. He was nowhere involved in installation. He was nowhere remotely connected to all this activity and so the explosion. And they said, no, but he should have control of this. It is always the prime occupier who has to be accountable and answerable for this. That is the way law defines it. And that is where is the accountability and answerability of the top boss to set a proper direction that people down the line will adhere to it. So if anything goes wrong because of the ignorance or otherwise, somebody knowledgeable will take care of it. So that is the idea of setting up a direction and integrating environmental system in your business pursuits. Defining the roles and responsibilities and authorities, that is getting firstly competent team on board. If you don't have competent people, you are bound to create problems for you. So please organize, properly have people on board and see to it they do a great job. After this, the leadership role comes in the picture only while reviewing the situation. They have to set the directions, see how things have gone. And now, clause 6, 7, 8, partly 9 and 10 is all organizational level initiatives. So the clause 6 talks about planning. So the first and the fundamental requirement of planning is to identify what are the risks and opportunities. For example, this man, if he were to do the risk and opportunity or the cost benefit analysis, he would have never allowed these people to sit in a room near a place where there can be a fire and allowed to cut these DOs, isn't it? But that risk was not identified, it was not addressed. So typically at the organizational level, there can be some risk. And at the top task level, there can be some aspects. The idea is we have to identify all these aspects and devise a system that it should not get converted into an impact. While doing that, you also have to see the legal obligation. That is a bare minimum thing. And see to it that you're complying to it. So some responsibility allocation, some legal register preparation, some monitoring of the compliances has to be established. And we all know we are all developing countries. That means our laws keep on changing. The EPR, Extended Producer's Responsibility, when launched in 2022, is now started with plastic, then got electronic goods or e-waste, then got hydraulic oil. So every year some new thing is being added. The regime is going to get ever expanding. So you need to know what are the updates and have a responsibility to track them and ensure they're correctly addressed. So once you have identified that these are your liabilities, these are your accountabilities, The highest top priority will be always set as an objective. A time bound actionable action plan is an objective. Anything which you can leave with, you can take it up later. Firstly, which is on the hit list, you should take it first as an objective. So the objective should be a knowledgeable, logical decision which is based on the facts analysis. Objective is not something that your consultant writes for you saying that preventing a pollution by 5% without understanding what is pollution, without understanding what is a technology. But then it should be your own business, your own engagement, your own cause effect analysis, and your own logical approach to come to the prioritization. So, objectives are those prioritized goals for your business to act on with the time bound actionable plans. So, typically, when you're talking about the most significant aspect which will lead to objective, how do you come to that? So, this is a checklist. You ask 10 questions. Is it covered under law? And if it is under law, you cannot compromise. It has to be addressed. Second, does it get affected by other requirements, that is the stakeholders' requirements? If it is, yes, anytime they can challenge your existence. Does it have a visible impact? Any soot coming out, or any fume coming out, or anything like water changing the color? People will start, society will get alarmed. Is it unsustainable? Plastic was definitely unsustainable, and that's where the control started. Can we use non-renewable resource a substitute? Because it's a resource conservation, natural resource conservation. Is it our goal? Do the stakeholder perceives this as an important issue? As I said, the European norm for the engine development is a stakeholder need. But yes, it is an important thing for a car manufacturer. The regulator encourage the control. There are certain mandated things, certain preferred thing or encouraged things. So first we focus on mandated thing, then we go to preferred things. Ultimately, does it pose a threat to the environment? If yes, don't live with it. Any of this having a yes or multiple of this having a yes, it becomes a priority. It should be one of your objectives. Again, there can be many things and we have limited resources. So you decide which is the highest priority, act on that. But have a logical experiment to justify what you're doing. Don't go blindly, because blindly you can only do mistakes. Now, once you decide the direction, once you decide your goalpost, what you need to do is to consolidate the resources. You need to have adequate for a man, material, method, machines consolidated. It's not a headcount when it comes to men. It is always a competency. The requisite competency. As I said, the garbage handler should know that this is a mark. Beyond that, I'm not going to fill up, or less than that, I'm not going to fill up. That level of competency is good enough. At the same time, the engine designer should have a competency of a proper efficiency of the fuel calculations, emission calculations, nothing less, right? So, corresponding to each post or a person, his competency or her competency need to be defined. And generally, the methodology is knowledge, skill, and experience that is gathered through education or training. But the standard allows you to have one more requirement, that is the effective validation of the whole thing. And if there is a gap, you have to take an action and fulfill the effectiveness of an action taken. That means if somebody is not educated or knowledgeable, it's not that you give him a training and he doesn't understand. There's every chance he will still not understand. Having a poka-yoke, having some visual indication, having some supervision can be a better way to bridge that competency gap. Ultimately, see to it that it is effective so that you get the requisite results. So, when you're talking about competency, we are definitely aiming at identifying the adequate competencies with us, if not taking an action internally or externally. By externally, we mean having a expert hired, job rotation, or outsourcing the whole activity. We can't control it, you take care of it. So this sort of actions has to be validated. Are they effective? So having a proper competency, effective competency is a bare minimum requirement. Then having the awareness, people should know the goal why they should do it. Otherwise, they don't do it. Right? So they should exactly know the benefit of doing this way and the benefit of not otherwise not doing it. What are the obstacles? I'll give you another classical example. There is an explosive factory, and I was doing an audit over there, and they have that empty cans where the explosive were stores because they're making some Bofors thing, cannon thing. So they need huge explosives, and the empty cans were stacked in a West house. And there were some ladies who used to take them for usage or other ways. And in fact, it's a very common. Why go for explosive? Most of the chemical companies, when they get a raw material, it's filled in the tanks. The tanks get emptied, cleaned according to them, and the employees take it home for water storage or any other storage. Okay, very common example. But then I asked them, are they aware of the consequences? Are they aware that what would happen if there were a stress of explosive? And to my surprise, the company said we can't tell them. But I said this is an awareness requirement, isn't it? They say if you start telling them, nobody will come to our job tomorrow onwards. They will get terrified. That is the one aspect. I don't deny that ignorance is a bliss. But ignorance is a bliss for them to work. And it can be curse for you if anything goes wrong. Because these people are ignorant, they do something stupid, and the whole thing can be set on fire. Because you have such an explosive storage. And that time, what are you going to say? Oh, it was curse or bliss? Think about it. So each thing has two sides. Understand them, make them aware. If you do this way, this is the reason. If you don't do it this way, this is the reason. And these are the implications. Now, it should be a call that should be a conscious, aware call. Otherwise, it means nothing. So, that awareness plays a critical role. The next one is communication 7.4. Believe me, people have started challenging your triple bottom line. Money at what cost? I remember a classical court case on coke. Keralite people in the environmental hearing, believe me, any plant, national, international, small, big, they have to have a public hearing. Most of the time, the public is so ignorant that they don't turn up for this hearing, or that sarpanch or somebody signs it off just like that. I know only two classical legal cases where the hearings got challenged. One was Enron, and Enron because of the kickbacks, and second was Coke, and that too in Kerala. Coke, rest everywhere they have very nice plants going on. Huh? I'm not against Coke, incidentally, but the Keralite farmers, they challenged that they are the main resource or main raw material for Coke is the water, and then they mix some concentrated liquid to make a Coke bottle. But this water, which was otherwise requirement for farming, that was challenged because they dipped such a deep bore that the other bores were dried up. And of course, this was not accepted by the society. Although they got a permission to start a plant, the social pressure asked them to close the plant. That was a classical case won by the Kerala farmers. Very rare, very exceptional. But yes, people can be aware and they ask you to report at what cost. Right? In fact, when it comes to pollution, you are bound by a law. But I've seen so many people manipulating, misrepresenting, not reflecting true and correct data. In fact, there's a concept called greenwashing. Like we have whitewashing, there's a concept of greenwashing. There is a violation of, say, pollutants. Solid waste level has increased because filter has failed. Then instead of saying there was a failure in filter, what they do is report everything was clean. Change the filter, of course, but then report everything was clean. So this sort of self-control is a challenging thing, and we have to really look into it. Now they're talking about global reporting initiatives in a big way, and there are people who are verifier, validator, along with the auditors, and they're definitely doing a great job. So internal, external communication, as well as the mandated reporting, including things like CBAM if you're exporting to Europe, everything has come into the control regime or the system requirements. The last resource requirement is documentation part of it. Documents can be two types. One is a guideline, what is to be done, and second is an evidence, what you have done. So whatever you have done is the type of documents they called as a record or evidences. And whatever is supposed to be done has to be controlled for edit proofing, version management. While what you have done should be tamper proofed and after a certain time safely disposed of. So distribution, access, retrieval, use, confidentiality, integrity. I mean, there is a huge regime that you need to follow when it comes to documented information. So this control should include even external origin documents, like the standard itself is an external origin document. So safe distribution as well as the version management is mandated, if not the approval. Now coming to the core clause of the operational control. In operational control, as I was saying, you have to start with the engineering solutions for isolating the aspects and impacts. 1 minute, this is something I can't avoid. Sorry. So getting back into operational control, basically, this is the whole engineering solutions that you may be using. Ideally, the technology, if possible. I'll give you a classical example. The ships which carry oil or otherwise, if there is any leakage or any accident or incident, the whole oil gets spread over the sea surface. Now, any other method like filtration and separation is very, very costly, exorbitantly costly. So, BARC, Baba Atomic Research Center scientists have developed a sponge which can be reused. And that was a magic solution. You don't have to filter it, you don't have to do anything. Simply let that sponge, it will absorb all the oil. So, oil can be reused, sponge can be reused. It can confine and reuse the leakage and control it. This is a technology. And if you ask me, I have been with multiple innovation centers and I always see a wow result. If you feel it is bothering you and if you start working on it, definitely you get an answer. So the operational control will talk about having such control projects internally as well as externally through your suppliers, as well as through proper change management. So such wow technology should always be first preferred. If it is not there, go to engineering solution where you are going to isolate the effect. Maybe a scrubber, maybe a back filter, maybe an effluent treatment plant. We don't know. We had a dedicated environment technology being evolved over a year. A back filter can be a cost-effective solution, but a more effective solution can be the electrostatic precipitate ESP, and it is costly, of course. But yes, it gives you a recovery of the resources, and especially in cement plants and all, where the resources matter a lot. Such ESPs are mandated. So you have to decide based on your budget, based on your finance, based on your technological access, what controls you're going to use. But 8.1 talks about operational planning and controls used so that there should be minimal impact. And 8.2 talks about the emergency preparedness. See, all these controls that we are talking, whether engineering or administrative or technology, they can have their own pitfalls. My scrubber fails working. There can be any reasons. Or my filter is jammed. There can be any reasons. So, in such scenario, there can be an emergency situation. And how are you going to combat such emergency situation? Need to be ready, prepared, equipped, and practiced. Drilled so that it doesn't become a surprise. Unfortunately, this is an area which is a little gray area. When we ask to the audits what sort of ERP you are doing, they are very happy with the fire drills. But more than fire, it can be the effectiveness of their abatement technologies also. So, as an auditor, we can really help them in having a better controls over that. So, operational control, please see to it, is considering the full life cycle perspective, including the outsourced processes, and it has to have a life stage control. In this case, the company which gave the DOs for cleanup, if they were to give them these controls that it should not be done in a closed room and you should monitor the air purity index, it should not have any spark nearby, probably so many people would have been alive that time. But this sort of subcontractor outsourced control are invariably missed out because we feel a garbage is a garbage. It has no value. So why control and bother about it? And unfortunately, when we talk about control, people think of quality. Nobody thinks of environment or safety. So this is the misconceptions, and we should be educating as an auditor about this and adding the value, typically for the outsourced process and life cycle perspective. So see to it at every life cycle stage, right from acquisition, right from design, acquisition of material, processing, distribution, end of life disposal, you have identified the aspects and established the controls, and the outsourced people are also knowledgeable about it. And you should have some methodology to ensure that. Then you have to determine the proper rating. There's every chance you educate them and they have their own shortcuts. Okay, we'll do it because they want the business. So that sort of thing is also not acceptable. You should be monitoring their performance. And indeed, you have to have audits if required. Internal, external, third party, that is your choice. Certification always have a tag and people prefer to have a certification audit. But idea is to reduce the impact, right? So operation talks about all those identified aspects and impacts are within control. So there are methods and criteria as a keyword. Method is the how you're going to process it to have a minimal impact. And criteria is what is your acceptance criteria. For example, there's something called BOD, biological oxygen demand. Or let me go into a very common example, passing of any exam. If you are doing an engineering thing, 50% is a passing mark. If I just say I have done my engineering, I should have a valid mark list or a degree showing that I have passed that exam. So that 50% is a criteria for qualifying me as an engineer or no engineer. Even if I spend 4 years, 8 years, 10 years, whatever is my patience, and don't score that marks, I'm no longer an engineer. However, what is a method? I can score 50% mark for the exam which is done by my mother at home. But then the method should be an authentic, traceable method of a university which is a recognized university. Only then I'm qualified engineer, right? So the criteria alone doesn't carry any meaning. The method alone doesn't carry any meaning. The criteria and method put together gives you a go, no go limit. So while defining an operational control or an impact control in general, you should define what is your acceptance criteria and method, how you're going to validate those criteria. So if you can do that at all life cycle stages, including the contingencies or abnormal scenarios which may lead into emergency, right? So the normal, abnormal, startup, shutdown, emergency scenarios, if you are addressed, you have done a great job. If not, as an auditor, we'll say, look at these points. These need to be controlled. Yeah, this was 8.2 emergency preparedness. We just started the discussion with an emergency where somebody, which has an outsourced process, which was not controlled. So that awareness, what can go wrong? And what is a response in case if it goes wrong? And actual drilling, practicing it, rehearsing it, so that if at all it goes wrong, you are within minimal loss, you are within control. In fact, there is a nice movie, it's a Hollywood movie called KG Cop. I don't know whether you have it, but it gives such a wonderful example and the importance of a drill. If you do something, no matter whoever are the participants, things do change. It becomes a habit. So the cop, which is a policeman, assigned for a task where he has to join as a KG teacher, school teacher in disguise. He has to handle the KG kids. But being a cop and being a disciplined person, he tried to teach them, because if anything goes wrong, how these children will react was uncontrolled. So he sees to it that the behavior gets controlled. And then, of course, it's it's a Hollywood movie. So at the end, everything goes smooth and things are taken care of because of the drills. People were disciplined. So the same way, if we can imbibe that drill and discipline in people, probably the loss can be controlled to some extent. But without any training, without any periodic practice, rehearsals, we can always create a mess. So after every drill, you have to go meticulously back and look at what are the learnings and how best it can be further improvised. You have to maintain the documentary evidence that you have conducted so many drills and these were the results and these were the learnings. So your response plan gets further improvised with these drills. Coming to the next clause, that is the checking part of it, that is clause 9.1, which refers to monitoring, measurement, analysis, and evaluation. Before getting into this clause, we need to understand what is monitoring. Monitoring is ascertaining a status. If you meet a friend after a while and that lady says, oh, you have put on weight. So that is close observation, which is deciding my status. And measurement is ascertaining a value. I immediately react, yes, here, in last 1 month, I put on 2 kgs. So that 2 kg is a value ascertained through a measurement scale. So in environment also, you have to decide what is to be monitored, what is to be measured, how and who is going to analyze it, and what is your criteria to evaluate it to initiate any controls required. So each organization, depending on their context, once again, I'm referring to the context, the issues, the stakeholder needs, their scopes, their regulatory obligations, decide what is the methods and the criteria and the time schedule. Use a proper calibrated instruments and define their performance, communicate need best, because all of us need to submit an environmental statement. In an industry, it is mandated in September, you have to submit an environmental statement. So you have to report it. It may not be globally reporting it, but it has to be reported to the legal authorities. You also have to establish the legal obligations. And if there is any deviation, you have to combat it by having a proper corrective action, correction as well as corrective action. You have to maintain the knowledge and understanding and ultimately retain the documented evidence of compliance. Very essential, because tomorrow, if there is a fire, we really don't know who was attributing to it. And then these records really play a major role. Internal audit is generally a requirement of a system audit, where we have audit scheduled based on the risks, the opportunities, the criticalities, the previous failures by trained auditors, and we execute it, identify the gaps, and of course, we improvise on it. This 9.3, which is a management review, is where again the top management is going to come in the picture. Right from clause 4.1 to 9.2, we have gathered a lot of information which the top management has to understand, logically analyze, and come to a conclusion. What resources need to be enhanced? or disperse, what are the improvements required, and what are the changes that you'll be looking for. In fact, any further actions or objectives in the strategic alignment, the top boss will take the decision. And generally, if there are any conflicts between two departments, for example, the filter is down and the EMS environmental system is saying, please stop your operation, and the uh, operation man is saying, no, I cannot stop it, then the top boss will take a call. Okay, in that case, you are not going to drain the water and store it and confine it in this area. When we get it repaired, you're going to treat it and then drain it. We appreciate. So, such interventions when there are conflicting requirements, the top boss during the review will give an action. May have a temporary change to environment management system. May deploy the resources where there is a gap. And if required, even align our goals and objectives. That is, a policy and objectives as well as strategic alignment will be ensured. So we are now fit to continue and sustain our business. Nobody will challenge us. Now, the top management gives a decision, do this, but actual execution is our responsibility. You and me, the workers. So in this case, you have to really identify what are the areas where we need to act on. 9.1 gives you your performance status. 9.2 gives you a system status, and 9.3 gives you the alignment status. So whichever are the deviations, react to it. Take an immediate action to confine it. Take an action to mitigate the consequences. Right? Both the things together becomes a corrective action. Go further, analyze, do the attribute which are causing this, and do an action to eliminate the causes or the attributes. By doing that, we are improvising on the systems. This is nothing but a corrective action. And other than this failures, you, while doing it, while deliberating it, while brainstorming on this, you may come out with some fantastic improvisation opportunities, which indeed should be treated as a continual improvement projects. And again, while doing it, all these things, you're going back into planning phase. But this time, the planning that you're going to do is at much higher level. The whole system has gone through a PDCA cycle, and now the planning is for the higher objective, higher goals, because the first objective are already met and fulfilled. If not, acted on, corrections are initiated. So this way, this PDCA every cycle will take you to the higher and higher level, and that is how it will ensure a continual improvement. So this is a very methodological approach to achieve a continual improvement all throughout. And very logical, very scientific, very data driven. So all of us can do it. Now on this transition, as I said, we are coming to the fag end of the session. 2026, what all changes are in the pipeline? So these are all entirely based on the draft, final FDIS, they call it, final draft version. Yet the official thing is not released, so treat it with a little uncertainty. So the FDIS has worked since January 2023 and come out with things to align with the latest requirements. So the harmonization to culture, which was a requirement of safety, is now in environment also. The climate change amendment, which was in February as we started, is now introduced as a part of the system requirement. It is no longer an amendment, it's a part of the standard. In addition to climate change, they are also using the terms like natural resource, pollution level, and biological diversity as a point, as an issue that every organization shall consider. So eventually, we are talking about the holistic environmental focus by this upgradation or this revision. In case of actions to address risk and opportunities, which is a part of planning, there used to be a general requirement. Now they have treated it as a separate requirement as risk opportunities and planning action. So it is no longer a generic requirement. It does call for the planning separately. So one more clause or subclause added, which demands an explicit plan for combating the dynamics. A note is included in a spec that you cannot miss out the life cycle perspective. It was previously in the guidance document, now it has become as a guideline in the standard itself. Then 6.3, that is a change management, is now much structured and a new clause dedicatedly added. Operational planning and control has explicitly uh, elaboration on outsourced processes as well as subcontracted activities. And improvement, that is clause 10, no major change. Annex A, which is a guideline for implementation, is quite in detail elaborated and which will definitely give a clear-cut vision for all those who are going for upgradation. We generally get 3 years time span for upgradation. So that is all from my side. And team, all the very best. Wherever you are, you can always contribute. And I wish you all can contribute. On the New Year day, that is Gudi Padwa, I got an opportunity to get connected with all of you, which is a topic of my passion. And I think I have given some inputs to you. However, 2 hours is a pretty small time span. So I would suggest feel free to reach me. These are my contact details. And I'll be always more than happy to get connected with you and do some value add. The last 10 minutes was my scheduled time for question answers. However, if you want to add something or extend it, I'll be open. Thank you. Such a big silence. Am I audible?
Harsh, did you get some questions on the chat board?
Yeah, actually, sorry for the lag on the video part. Sorry. Yeah, so ma'am, yeah, I'll take the questions now. Many of the questions received, I already reverted them with the confirmations as well. Still, there are certain things, which will need an expertise answers from your. So, so I'll take one at a time. I guess we are running a bit. Okay, yeah. So what are the, ma'am, so there is one question that what are the common criteria should an organization use to determine which environmental aspects are significant?
Yeah, actually, there's nothing called common. It has to be specific to the organization. But if you
Okay.
really want to say common, the legal obligation becomes common for all.
Okay.
And then it can be, if at all you want to take it, the duration. See, I had a leakage. My machine is leaking. Was it detected immediately? Or was it detected after a month? It will have a different impact. So detection,
Right.
duration, reversibility. If the leak is confined in my concreted floor, I can wipe it off.
Correct.
But if there is an air getting emitted, then it has already reached to multiple places and I cannot undo it. It is no longer reversible.
Correct.
So they always say the focus should be on those impacts which are irreversible, which are not getting detected and persist for a long duration.
Okay.
And which have a legal binding. These are the 3 common things, irrespective of an organization, they should focus on.
Okay.
Kind of give some examples of the legal requirements, no, of a plant. Maybe that will give some better idea, like air consent or something like that.
Yeah. EP, Environment Protection Act, talks about the air, water, land contamination requirements. And in air, we talk about the SS, that is suspended particulate matter. Then the level of noise also, that's part of air rules.
Yeah.
And we also talk about the SOx and NOx, that is sulfur and sulfuric and sulfurous oxide, nitrous and nitric oxide. Now, these 2 things are output of a combustion. So, if you're using any fuel and if you're doing any burning, generally they assume there'll be an air pollution. So, permissible level of SOx and NOx are defined. Carbon dioxide is indeed part of it, but they have not put any limit on that. Then we have noise, suspended particulate matter in air. When it comes to water, it is BOD COD, that is biological oxygen demand level, the chemical oxygen, dissolved oxygen level, the pH, and the turbidity. If you're using a water for drinking, after recycling, the water potability, There are again dedicated standard on potability, which I won't go into detail. But indeed, the turbidity, suspended solid particulate matter, pH, BOD, COD, these are the common things that you should be monitoring for. And noise is again the noise depending on which area you are in. It can be 70 dBs nighttime, 75 dBs daytime. And if you are in the residential zone or near hospital, it is reduced to 655 and 60.
And even PM also is there, no, madam? PM, particulate matter.
Yeah, that is suspended particle,
Yeah.
SPM that I was calling it.
Mm.
So,
Okay.
in fact, we had displays from SUFFER. They used to display the level of SOx, NOx, particulate matter, or suspended particulate matters. But now they are not active and operative. But that was a project we have taken up long back with IITM.
Okay. Yeah, so ma'am, we'll go to the next question then.
Yep.
So there is one more question. Probably this would be the last one. So one person has raised a good query that if a company is already 100% compliant with all the Indian environmental laws, so still they need to follow ISO 14001.
Yeah, because law is always a postmortem.
Okay.
It is saying that I have not committed a murder doesn't mean I'm a very decent person.
Correct.
Right? So law will prevent me doing any criminal offense. But there are always better ways of doing my business. We don't say that he's gentleman because he has not murdered, isn't it?
Correct.
So we are not criminals. Law ensures we are not criminals.
Correct.
But we should be positively contributing as our commitment and accountability is what the standard calls for. So that's why it is voluntary.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think law is a legal requirement, whereas this is the management system that you'll have to continuously keep on improving yourself above law.
There's no end to it. How far you can
There's no end to
improvise.
it, yeah.
I guess that would answer the query raised. Yeah. So rest all the queries, all the participants, I request that all the rest questions you can connect with ma'am personally. I guess all the details for connecting with the ma'am are shared over here. We come to the final end of this seminar that with which I'll start with, of course, thanking ma'am the way she has elaborated on the topic, so lucrative. I guess even the queries which were answered in such a manner that there cannot be even a part of a concern. So here I am, ma'am, on behalf of Sustainability Reporting Standard Board of Institute of Chartered Accountants of India. I extend my sincere gratitude to all the participants for joining today's insightful webinar. I would place on record a special appreciation to our distinguished speaker, Dr. Sanjeevani Gokhale, for delivering an enriching and highly informative session about ISO 14001, that is Environmental Management System. Her vast experience and deep domain knowledge in sustainability, environmental management systems, and auditing have provided a valuable insights and, of course, the practical perspectives to all the participants. The session effectively highlighted the importance of environmental management systems in today's business landscape and also emphasized the need for the organization to adopt the referred structures. We also extend our heartfelt thanks to all the participants for their active and lively participation and the engagement throughout the whole session. We look forward for the continued association and participations in our future initiatives and programs. So thank you once again for all the valuable time and support, and special thanks, of course, again to our honorable speaker, Dr. Sanjeevani ma'am. So with this, I rest the vote part. Thank you so much, ma'am.
Thank you.
Madam,
My
thank
pleasure
you.
getting connected with such an august gathering. Thank you,
Madam,
Mr. Gupta ji, for
you,
allowing me to be on this platform.
thank you for coming over here and give this session, because this group is a group of auditors only, because chartered
That's
accountants
right.
are auditors. And I think this would be one of the great session where they can understand how they can include this also in their auditing part.
Sure.
And for me personally, I would thank you for refreshing the knowledge, what you had. Thank you.
Exactly, ma'am.
My
Thank you so
pleasure.
much.
Bye bye.
All the best. See you all.
Thank you.
That support